News coming out of the Chicago Bears camp, head coach Matt Nagy announcing Monday afternoon that Nick Foles will be the starting quarterback for Week 4. He entered the third quarter on Sunday afternoon, leading the Bears to a comeback win over the Falcons. Also, Nagy announcing running back Tarik Cohens tore his ACL. This confirmed the fears from Sunday. He is done for the year. He injured that leg in the fourth quarter on Sunday. Here to help us break this all down, we are joined by Pete Prisco, CBS Sports NFL insider, and Jamie Eisenberg, our fantasy football expert. Pete, we have seen so many injuries leading up to this point, leading to final game of Week 3. What is your reaction to hearing the news first of Tarik Cohens?
Yeah, you hate to see it. And when you see a running back like that go down with a major knee ligament injury, ACL, that's always bad for the player, but it's even worse for the Bears, I think, in terms of what they're going to be missing from their offense. This is a dynamic playmaker, can run inside, can take the ball in the screen game and become a big-time threat in the passing game. They will miss him, and anytime you have ACL injuries for a back, it's always concerning. It's not as concerning as it used to be, but this is a guy who puts his foot in the ground and makes a lot of plants and cuts, so very concerning for his future going forward.
Yeah, it obviously stinks. A lot of people were hoping for big things from Tarik Cohens, myself included, especially now with the quarterback change, to see what could happen with a little bit better and more accurate passer, especially a guy like Nick Foles, who didn't run as much like Trubisky did. But now this opens the door for hopefully a strong finish for David Montgomery. And the nice thing that we've seen from Montgomery, 9 targets over the first 3 weeks of the season. So they haven't been afraid to throw him the ball, and we know that's typically where he loses to Tarik Cohens. So maybe they get a little bit more creative with Cordarrelle Patterson. Maybe they bring somebody in off the street. But this is an arrow pointing up now for David Montgomery, who had one big game in week number 2. A little bit of a disappointing week 1 and week 3. But now if he's more involved in the passing game, what he should be able to do carrying the ball, he should have a chance to be a very solid number 2 running back for the rest of the season.
Well, let's talk about the other point of news here. Nick Foles being named the starter for Week 4. Pete, are you shocked that Nagy did come to this decision, even though he said on Sunday he wasn't ready to make the commitment to move on from Mitch Trubisky?
Yeah, he went and watched the tape and then realized he was ready to move on from Mitch Trubisky. Yeah. And I think they started Mitch Trubisky this season because Ryan Pace made the bold move to go trade up and draft him at number 2 overall in a draft where Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson were sitting there. So I think you're getting pressure from your general manager to play him. Well, they played him. He played himself out of the job. They put Foles in. Foles rallies him from behind. He still didn't complete 60% of his passes, but he drove the ball down the field, made some plays, threw 3 touchdown passes, and it's the right decision. Look, he has a relationship with all 3 of the guys that he'll be working with. Matt Nagy coached him in Kansas City. Bill Lazor's been with him before, and John DeFilippo, the quarterback's coach, was with him last year in Jacksonville. So this is one of the, and in Philadelphia when he won a Super Bowl. This is one of those situations where we knew it was coming, and it's the right time for him to play.
Jamie, what is Foles' fantasy value now that he's going to be named the starter?
Well, he's a guy that you look for in 2 quarterback leagues, super flex formats. Remember, we're getting close to when the bye week's going to start, so he'll come into play there. But I think the biggest thing that he does is he elevates the value for the guys around him, mostly Allen Robinson, as we saw. You got to throw the ball in the guy's direction. Let one of your best playmakers go make plays. Anthony Miller, guy that can make some plays. Get him the ball a little bit more. Jimmy Graham scored a touchdown now 2 of 3 weeks. Give him an opportunity to make some plays. So the Bears are limited in their pass catchers. That's, I think, what you look for, though, is can Nick Foles come in and make Robinson better? Can he make Miller better? Can he keep Jimmy Graham doing what he's been doing? David Montgomery now out of the backfield. And the nice thing is, if you're looking for a streaming quarterback, which is what we talk about if you're just trying to fill a spot with a guy who might be struggling, obviously from a DFS perspective, he faced the Colts last year. He played them as a member of the Jaguars. Actually, his only productive game as a starting quarterback for the Jaguars. He went for 296 yards and 2 touchdowns against a defense that's obviously very similar. So he's got an opportunity this week to come in and make some plays. We'll see how he does. But for right now, he's not a guy that you're starting in 1 quarterback leagues. Hopefully not, at least, depending on what your roster looks like.
Let's talk big picture Chicago now. Pete, do you see the puzzle pieces kind of coming together, the confidence of Chicago moving forward with Foles and then whatever they have to do to make up for Tarik Cohens' loss?
Yeah, I think they're 3-0, but how good are they? That's the question. I mean, look who they've beaten on their way. And offensively, can he continue to play like he did in the fourth quarter? That's a big question mark in my mind. I think he's average as they come. The guy won a Super Bowl, so you got to give him credit for that. But he gets hot and he gets cold. And I think now that he's the starter, it'll be interesting to see if he can stay hot longer than he goes cold. Because if he can, they might sneak in as a playoff team. But if he goes back to playing inconsistently, I don't know how good they are starting this week against the Colts.
I'm sure
I totally agree.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jamie.
I was going to say, I totally agree with Pete. You know, this is a team that, look, they had to come from behind in a frantic effort against a bad Lions team. They had to come from behind against a Falcons team that we know is not very good. So their wins, you got to give them credit. They are 3-0, but this is not the best team in the NFC North by far. The Packers are leaps and bounds ahead of them. And when you start to look at the landscape of what the NFC looks like right now, they're not better than the teams in the NFC West. They're probably not better than the top two teams in the NFC South. This is not going to be a team that has a lot of momentum going forward unless, of course, like Pete says, that Nick Foles does get hot, because this is still a good defense. It's not the same defense that led them to the playoffs a couple of years ago. So this is a very fraudulent 3-0 team, but give them credit for getting to this point. It's now a matter of what they do moving forward. When you make a quarterback change for a winning record, that kind of tells you where your franchise is, though.
Another injury to add to the list, Broncos' Terrell Casey reportedly out for the season with an arm injury. Pete, reaction with another injury here in the league.
Yeah, you hate to see guys go down, but it's part of playing football. And Terrell Casey's a good player. They got him from the Titans. He's was going to be a big part of their defense, but they're playing for next year anyways. I mean, you know, Terrell Casey, put him in mothballs and worry about next year. They're all with the way their injuries have gone, Von Miller and the quarterback being down, they're all playing in Denver for next season. So you hate to see a guy go down. He wants to play. He's a good player, but this is all about 2021 for the Broncos.
All right, well, we appreciate the insight, Pete and Jamie. Thank you so much. On the breaking news, injuries piling up in the NFL. And with all these injuries, you know you're going to need to set up your fantasy lineup. So download and subscribe the Fantasy Football Today in 5 podcast. Our experts are breaking down everything you need from the fantasy football world in just 5 minutes. Again, download and subscribe today.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.